Coming at you live from all over Ohio. A Cleveland Browns podcast full of laughs, rants, fun, and stats. A place where all Browns fans' voices are welcome and heard. A show that aims to inform and entertain you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Barking Browns Show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome in. It's Wednesday afternoon. It's episode 100. We're into the triple digits. We're brought to you by our friends over at Homage Apparel. I'm Jacob. That's Nick. What's going on? How are you doing this afternoon?
We are in triple digits. I'm still in awe of that. I don't know where the time went, but Jacob, it's been a hell of a ride, and I can't wait for more.
Yeah, I got my first Guardians hat.
Look at that.
Yesterday. We're good. We're ready to go. I went Easter egg hunting, got enough money to buy a hat. That's not even a joke. That's what happened. And so here we are. We got our great Homage Apparel. I got the NFL Jam. We got the NBA Jam. The Cavs hosting a playoff game on Saturday. Go check our friends out over at Homage Apparel. Go check our friends over at BetJack, who've got a lot of great things. If you follow Grant Pushkar, they got a lot going on over there. You might want to go over there and check them out. So we've got a special guest for episode 100. We're going to bring him from halfway across the world, cap expert, and just a handsome son of a bitch, right? Like, that's what we're gonna say. Miss the OBR's Jack Duffin. What's going on, Jack?
It's good to join you guys, and congrats on hitting 100. It's you're like, will this show make 10? And then suddenly you're 2 weeks later you're at 100, and you're like, what just happened?
Right, we started before we ever bought this house. I was in my apartment with like crappy shared apartment Wi-Fi, and if you go and watch like the first episode, I'm like all the way up here, and I'm like, hey, are we live? Oh, we're live. Oh my God, we're live. And then so we're like juggling through it, trying to figure out what's going on. But Jack, we're happy to have you on here a day later, because I got a stomach virus that has actually decimated my office completely. Everybody has pretty much all had it. It's like a 24-hour bug. Like, you get it, you're miserable, you sleep. I slept a ton yesterday. We moved on. We're good. We're going from that. So we're gonna jump right on into it, guys. We got to start where we don't really want to start, but it's what's going on, and that's the situation with Perion Winfrey. Comes out earlier today that he has been arrested and charged with assault on a girl that he was dating. I don't know if he still is, but it was phrased in such a way that he was dating at the time of this alleged incident. Not a lot of details outside of like he grabbed her hand and that was something. I don't know if he like pulled on it or like squeezed it really hard or anything like that. There's not a lot of details out there right now, so we don't know. So I'll start with you, Jack, and we'll go to Nick, and I've got an opinion on it too. But where are you at with this? Like, the Perion stuff is starting to add up, and how you feel about the whole situation going on right now.
Yeah, even when it was just, I don't know if Fisher came out, whether he was turning up late for practice or whatever the problems were. Yeah, you've got a question mark there, and you generally, so the 3 years so far, they've carried 5 D tackles in 1 year, and the other 2 they've carried 2. So it's always been 9 on the D line. So you need all those guys to contribute, and that's the question. If you're looking to carry 4 again, well, he has to be one of the 4, and that's going to be a concern at any point. And it's not like you can just lose him during the season and boom, we'll find somebody else. The finding someone else, there's not a running back, and there's a few other spots where you can pick up a street free agent linebacker, Reggie Ragland. You can pick guys up and they can come in and do a job. It's a lot tougher when you're talking about a defensive tackle. There's not sort of 4 for every team. Teams are scraping the barrel to try to get by. So it's one that you need to bring in more bodies than you'd like. And I think we'll get to the stage where Al Woods is probably going to end up happening. And then you've got a straight up battle basically between everyone else. There's about 6 guys. And I think this case with Winfrey moves him from being a roster lock to going, actually, you're in the pool with everyone else. It's you, Jordan Elliott, Ben Still, Tommy Togiai, Hill, Hurst. 6 of you. 2 spots up for grabs. Good luck. And hey, competition's good, but he's moved himself from probably being a lock where I felt, hey, he's really good to be on the roster too. Can we trust him?
Yeah. You know what? This is a really big year for the Browns, and I don't think they can afford to go forward with guys that they can't trust, to your point, Jack. So I don't know the entirety of the issues that they had during the season, but obviously there were a few things going on there with the way that the team. I believe he was suspended for like a half or a quarter.
He was sent home from. It was multiple incidents, but it was sent home from practice, made inactive. He was a healthy scratch here and there, and there was also like a series. Like it's hard to keep up because I feel like that's how many incidents happened last year.
And so when you're a 4th round pick and that's the type of thing that you've got going, I don't imagine that there's a lot more give from the Browns' perspective. So I'm not sure what's going to happen. You know, all like you were saying, Jacob, this is all fresh. And so, Jack, I think at this point, I'm probably in the same camp with you that Perion probably goes to the bubble and has to really play into still being a Brown.
I think he was my only lock from last year. And quite frankly, he was the only defensive tackle from last year that I wanted to keep. And that was a lot of that had to do with upside potential. I had a conversation with my dad about this earlier when it had broke, and I had called him about it. And it was kind of like, if you are a proven commodity, right or wrong, if you're a proven commodity, you're going to get a lot more leverage. Well, you're not in this situation. And don't get me wrong, Perion Winfrey has upside potential out the ears, right? And we even saw I'd say 5 or 6 games there towards the end of the year, once all of those situations had resolved themselves, where he'd been, quote unquote suspended and sent home and made inactive and all those things that had happened. Once that had wrapped up, he was playing better, and he was being somewhat consistent as a pass rusher and doing some things that you thought he could do. He just wasn't. And he was kind of transferring it. Real quick, guys, if you're on Twitter and you want to comment on the show and interact with us live, you'll have to go to Facebook or YouTube. You can't see the Twitter comments. I just want to throw that out there. But it's like, I really want Al Woods anyway. And if you bring Al Woods in and you think about it this way, Dalvin Tomlinson's a lock. If Al Woods is signed, it's because he's a lock. I think it's either Hurst or Hill. Is it Hill? Is that the right? Is his name's Hill? Okay.
Tristan Hill.
I always remember it's Tristan, but I want to call him Tristan Smith all the time, which I know is not correct or anywhere close. I think one of those guys, if they're healthy, is a lock. I mean, they gave, and Jack will touch on this, they gave, Maurice Hurst enough guaranteed money to think that if he's healthy. Oh, it was Hill that
got 300,000. Hurst has got nothing.
Okay.
Whereas Hurst, for me, is the more exciting prospect.
He absolutely is. Like, when you watch Hurst, like his rookie year in Oakland was a lot of fun. When you talk about pass rushing defensive tackles, you're like, so they want one of those guys to work out. They want either Smith or either Hill or Hurst to work out. And then, like you talked about, it's going to be 4 or 5. That's what they're going to carry. I think they draft one. There is enough in this class that they potentially draft one. And if they do, that pushes Perion out before this stuff, is what I'm getting at. Like,
well, and I think, in the immediate, right, you brought up Woods, and I saw Jack was nodding quite a bit. Jack, are you on the sign Woods train now?
I've always been happy with him. So he was never going to be in my initial article because he got cut this offseason, so he wasn't sort of a free agent that I wrote about with everyone. But there is so many good DTs out there that if they don't end up with Al Woods, I'm not concerned that I could draw. I think there's about 15. There's about 5 that I really like. Quinton Jefferson's gone, so he's one of the 5 I like. You've got Al Woods, you've got Matt Ioannidis. There's a couple more out there. Shelby Harris, Poona Ford. I think, pretty sure that's the 5. Yeah. There might have been one more on my list, but there is plenty of bodies. So they're going to end up with somebody. But at the same time, they don't need to rush into it because the advantage is for all the positions they potentially need someone. Running back, safety, edge, DT. There's about 10, which is it's a great spot to be in.
So let's play worst case scenario then. Let's say Perion Winfrey's no longer a Brown.
Okay.
Are we saying that there's enough options out there to still feel okay about where the Browns could go? Defense. Okay.
Yeah, for one, I'm glad that Jack brought up Poona Ford. And I was a little immature on Twitter the other day and said I'd love Poona Ford just so I got to say Poona all the time. I just think it'd be it's a fantastic name. We had Jack on for a Saturday episode on our Twitch last year, and I put him in a very precarious spot when I asked him who was the best name in the draft and why is it Smoke Monday. And I just remembered that randomly in my head, and Jack was not happy that I just gave him the answer before he got to answer it. So I just kind of remembered that randomly. But yeah, like he just said, I love Matt Ioannidis, Poona Ford, Al Woods, Shelby Harris, like those are all names right there. And then you could go into the draft. I like Coburn a ton. If you're looking for an Keandre Coburn, the defensive tackle from Texas, who's really a nose tackle. And that's all I need for him to be. I think, and I'll come over here to come some comments here that kind of relate to it. Casey weighs in, be who he can afford to be. Perion ain't that guy. He can't bark himself out of this one.
That was a great moment. I was really excited.
Probably his best of his career. Schwartz carried 10 active D linemen. I think there is a good chance they lean towards the 5-5 this year just because of the way he likes it. But you already have a couple of edge players that can play inside.
The question is, where's that last person coming from? And if they carry 10, there's a good chance one's inactive on game day anyway. So it's not you carry 10 for the sake of 10 are going to play. One's still going to be on the bench. But the route is, I don't see it being linebacker, because if you take a linebacker out, that's hurting Bubba Ventrone and the special teams. And they've signed Kunasic and guys because they want them active. I doubt Stefanski wants to give up offensive players that he likes. So you're effectively looking at DB. And hey, is that cutting DeAnthony Bell? Because he would be the 10th guy on the list. So he's gone if you're doing that. And it then comes to that discussion that I don't know where that last spot comes from. If we were going cheaper and easier at linebacker, then you can get into that debate. But if that's the route, then we're not drafting a linebacker because we've got all our linebackers on the roster, which I don't want to go down. So I think to get to 10 is going to be painful for somewhere else on the roster.
That's a great point.
Especially when you've dealt with a lot of injuries in the linebacker room in recent years. I just don't think the Browns can afford to be thin there because I mean, everybody, if I'm correct, Anthony Walker's dealt with a couple different injuries now. And so that's like, I'm really glad to have him back, but at the same time, you can't leave yourself without a paddle.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. But I would say unless something comes out that hasn't came out already about Perion, I don't think right now we'll get him cut. I do ultimately think he still remains in camp. But if he does something else, I don't – like I said, we got so little details. This could be thrown out. We don't know. But the point is he is continuously putting himself in position where if he was on kind of thin ice to begin with, it's like, hey, if something falls into their lap in the draft, for example, or like say they sign Al Woods and then someone falls to 74. I don't know who it would be, but just somebody like okay, I'm not big on this guy. So I'm going to put that out there before Jack tears me apart because I know what he's going to say. But if someone like Kalijah Cansey just free falls to 74, I don't like Kalijah Cansey in the second or the first, like some people are mocking him. But is he a better pass rushing DT than Perion Winfrey? Yeah. So I think this could put him on the thin ice to where, like, I love Travis Jones, like, and he started getting in Perion Winfrey in that last year class, and they started getting mocked in the second. They both fell to the third and the fourth. Like, if something like that happens, I think they're going to be more okay with like cutting Perion for a different player because of what's happened.
I think it puts the Browns in a tougher position than they might normally be in because they really only have, like, of the defensive tackles on rookie deals on the Browns roster, I think Perion Winfrey is the only one that they have true long-term hopes for currently. And Jack, I'm not sure where you're at with the other not rookies, rookie deals in the defensive tackle room, but would you say that's fair?
Yeah, they want rid of Elliott because Elliott's going to cost $2.7 million this year, so that rules him out where they want to. Tommy Togiai doesn't belong in the NFL. And then after that, Ben Steele, I liked the pickup during the season, but he's not someone you're looking around long term. But I'm excited to see competition. If we bring in Al Woods and then we're sat there going, hey, let 6 DTs fight out for 2 spots, happy. Because you're going to get injuries. People are just going to get injured in camp. We've seen it with Michael Woods already. We haven't even got to camp. But give me plenty of bodies because I want to go into training camp where I've got 1 extra in every room. And if it's a couple of guys battling out for the final spot, so be it. Because that will breed a better team. And as well, if you get to the end of camp and we're saying, hey, 5 good guys that are worthy of being on other people's rosters going to get cut, maybe we'll try trade them off for conditional 7ths or other weird stuff. But if that's the case, happy. I've got no issue. I want to see people fighting for spots because the last thing I want is we go, oh, yeah, we're happy with our edge room if we say draft a guy and we've got Wright, Thomas, and a rookie. Well, what happens if Okoronkwo's out for the season at the end of camp? You ready for Alex Wright or Thomas or one of those rookies to start for the entire season? You've got to be ready with more bodies. And it's fine when we were going through the past of developing and building the team because giving rookies the opportunity was important. We need to win now. So give me proven vets. And by all means, if the vets get beaten out, if rookie picks get beaten out, so be it. I just want the best 53. But I want to go into camp with about 70 players where I can go, you've got a shot of making the team. In the past, we've generally been able to sit there about 45 of the names gone, right, we can write these in pen. There's 6 spots up for grabs. And it's like, which player can go from shouldn't be in the NFL to making the roster? Now we're going to go, hey, let's have 65. Let's have 70. These guys should all be on a roster. So they're not going to make our practice squad because they're too good. We'll get to the end of it and, hey, let them go. Dimitri Felton can go play in San Fran or something. And these guys can go out and get onto teams. And good luck to them. Happy for them, but yeah, I don't want them.
I bet Kyle Shanahan would have a ball with somebody like Dimitri Felton. That's such a good fit, Jack.
Yeah, the Michael Woods thing kind of opens things up a little bit for Dimitri. Yeah. And kind of just something we had touched on when Michael Woods tore his Achilles a couple of weeks ago. It's like, yeah, I mean, you got to figure out ways to create competition, not just for the sake of competition. Which is exactly what you're talking about. Like competition because you have an abundance of riches. Competition because there was a situation in baseball. I used to follow the Reds pretty heavily where the Reds had 2 really good catching prospects come up at the same time in both Yasmani Grandal and Devin Mesoraco, who had made major league debuts, but they hadn't really played. And they had to make a decision, which one's our catcher and which one is traded for assets. You want to be in that. Now, they picked wrong. They kept Devin Mesoraco and traded the better player, which was Grandal. But, it ended up, which is a story of the Reds franchise, quite frankly. But you want to be in that spot. Like you talked about, if you've got a bunch of DTs and you end up trying to switch one for a pick or switch one for a tackle because you need a tackle because of injury and stuff like that. And that is where this team needs to be. It's where I think they are. And it's where, kind of going forward. So we'll shift a little bit. We'll get back to the draft here soon. Nick, you have something?
Yeah, I just want to say, because I see Drew's here, and Drew's been with us for about the entirety
of the entire 100, yeah.
So I want to say thank you to you and thank you to everybody that's been with us here for that long. I know we've hinted at a little something special we have for you. So later in the show, we're going to have an announcement of just a little way we like to give back to everybody that's helped us get to this point.
And I'm also going to, as a special part of this episode, I will announce the stupid thing I will be doing this year that takes place in June as a charity fundraiser for the network. We haven't really decided on the charity quite yet, but I do believe it will be something surrounding children's charities, something like that. That's typically what I like to do. But I do stupid stuff. I eat a lot of hot stuff last year. So this year it's actually going to be physical pain. So that's an announcement coming up at the tail end of the show if you want to check that out. All right, Jack, we want to talk to you real quick about some of the cap situation, because there is only one person that I go every contract or every situation when it comes to financial, I go to see what you have to say about it first and foremost. And quite frankly, you send me a lot of your stuff ahead of time, which is kind of very beneficial for me because I'm always looking for it. So just take me through right now, just where they're at, I know they're adding some more money at June 2nd once the Clowney and Johnson stuff comes out. And on top of that, with their current cap situation, how much of that needs to be allocated for a rookie class coming up?
Yeah, so just with where they're at numbers-wise, and if anyone's ever looking for it, because it's always changing as guys get signed, cut, and everything else. So it's always my pinned tweet. I always leave it there, so it's nice and easy for everyone. But the number, as it stands today, is 7.76 million of cap space. So 7.76. Marquise Goodwin's still unsigned. Heard today that that's all expected to still go through. It's just a thing that will get there. The rookie class, so net salary cap cost, because you only account for in the offseason the top 51 contracts, even though you can sign up to 90 players. So lots of them come under the threshold of counting. So the rookie class is going to cost 926,000 net, so dirt cheap. No real cost to sign them.
Yeah.
Unless you've got sort of a top 20-odd pick, it barely touches the sides in terms of salary cap. So that's there. And then on June 2nd, because of the two post-June 1st cuts, again, 9.75 million from John Johnson and 1.165 million from Clowney. You don't quite get all of that amount because, hey, that player goes off and then you have to bring another player up to count onto the roster for the 51, but it's basically that amount of money. So, yeah, they're in a really nice spot still. It's not one where they're going to go out and blow everything. You generally need about, I'd say 10 million just to be safe through the season to pay for the practice squad guys, because all the guys that are on the practice squad need to get paid. Guys that are on injured reserve, because if a guy moves to injured reserve and you have to sign another player to go onto the roster, that's a player you've got to pay. And then sort of 5 million in that for, hey, if you want to make a trade or you want to do something else, who knows what's going to happen, just sort of like an emergency fund. So most of that money for the June 2nd will just sit in that, hey, they'll pay for practice squad and pay for other stuff. So there is enough wiggle room. And if they go out and sign a guy, say they brought in an Al Woods that, say he's cost 3 million, it's only probably going to be like 1.5 on the salary cap this year because they'll backload it the way they've done with signing bonus and void years, etc.
I'd like to preface this by saying I think that the Browns right now are beginning the era that they have been building since Sashi took control. And yes,
forever.
It got delayed by the fact that the quarterback wasn't the guy that they hoped he would be. But so my point in saying that is that I expect the Browns to have the goal of Super Bowl or bust this year. That's a take that you can say how you can take it whichever way you want. But the point is, everybody likes to talk about how Deshaun Watson's cap hit beyond this year is astronomical. So while I think that the Browns are already playing for this year, Jack, is there anything that we can do to address? Because everybody's so stuck on that. Oh, well, Deshaun's going to cost $67 million last year, and the Browns aren't going to be able to afford anything. And how are they possibly going to function? And Jimmy Haslam's going to close the door and sell the team because he can't afford it. I know it's, but could we talk a little bit about Deshaun Watson's cap hit moving forward beyond 2023?
Yeah. So with Deshaun Watson, after he's done year 3, provided he plays well over the next 2 seasons, so this season and next season, up to 2024, they'll extend him. So he'll do 3 years, they'll extend him. It'll probably be another deal like the same as it is, probably 5 years, fully guaranteed, and we'll just kick the can again. But I think the route they'll want to go is very much similar to Tom Brady was at the end with the Bucks, Drew Brees, especially with the Saints, where effectively when he goes to retire, he'll still have another year on his deal that they'll put like a fake tiny year in the end. Not a void year, but a fake year. And then he'll retire on the 2nd of June. And then what will happen is all of this dead cap money that we've just kicked along, not all of it, because some of it you do have to pay now, but there'll be a chunk of it left at the end, where for 2 years after he's retired, they'll still be paying for him. And that'll mean jump into a cheap quarterback like Jacoby Brissett, maybe a draft pick. You'll, in theory, be paying all this astronomical sum in quarterback money for Watson that's no longer on the roster, but you'll balance that by going cheaper with a Brissett. It could be a veteran, it could be a rookie pick, but you just kind of go, hey, we'll lump it. if we've managed to win a Super Bowl in 10 years of Watson, no one's going to care if it's a 1-2 year, not a rebuild, because you can still have all the talented players around him that helped Watson can work with the next QB. But you go to a Jacoby Brissett, and yeah, you might only be paying Jacoby Brissett sort of $6 million. You might also then have a lump sum of like 30 mil you're still covering from Watson leaving and no longer on the team. But that's what I believe they will aim to do. Obviously, if Watson stinks the next 2 years, you've got to decide something else to do. But as long as he plays well, I think that's the route where they want to go as a franchise.
Okay.
And you talk about the overall things. If he plays at the high level, you can be less expensive in other places and it be fine. Like you said, if he plays well, you're going to extend him. If he plays really, really well, and he continues to play at the level we think he can. I mean, his best year in 2020, he had – tell me outside of Brandon Cooks who his wide receivers were. And you can't say Jordan Akins because he's on the Browns now, and that's cheating.
And he was playing.
What is it?
Will Fuller, was he there during that time?
Yeah, he probably was, like, for 3 games. I don't know.
I think that's the year Deshaun Watson made Kiki Kuti a thing. Yeah. Avid fantasy player right here.
In fantasy leagues and did nothing for me.
But so basically, through what you're saying, the idea is that Deshaun gets another extension. So realistically, then, is it fair to say that we're looking at like a 6-ish to maybe 8 on the high end type year window?
So you can keep going. There's no real end to how long you can sustain it. The only thing that's going to stop you doing that is if you suddenly go out and it's like, hey, let's add another 20 million a year wide receiver in like Hopkins. Let's add a 20 million a year Butker, where you, even if you could trade them for nothing or just add them, that's the thing that's going to stop you to able to sustain success and keep going. And what the Browns are effectively doing, and there's an article I wrote over the weekend, it was a few days ago, but it was looking at cash spend. And I always encourage people to look at cash spend and follow that as it's a better route to go of what happens with a team than the salary cap numbers, because they can be so easily manipulated. But cash, hey, if you give a player 10 million, you have to count it on the cap. You can just choose how you count it, whether it's this year, next year, and signing bonuses, and you move that 10 million around, but it all has to be counted one way or another. But if we just look at the last 2 years and this year involved, the Browns are spending 100 million more than any other team in the NFL. That is what they've given out. And we're talking, the Browns total is 800 million, and the team in second is Dolphins with 704 million. So we're not even talking like this is a tiny, it's only 100 million, and NFL numbers, it can be there. That's a massive amount of money difference. The reason why I hate in, what was that first year? It's 2021. They were first. Then last year they were second, and they're back at first at the moment this year. So how they're doing that is they're effectively spending the salary cap of 2 years into the future. So as long as the salary cap keeps going up, they will pay it and they will backload it really aggressively. And they're spending pretty much from the average, they're spending about 50 million a year more than any other sort of the average in the league. So not 50 million more than everyone, but 50 million more than the average. And other teams, they'll balance it out. They'll do a bit above average, a bit below average in different years. But they are just going, hey, Jimmy's happy to pay this money now. We can go spend at the top. And it is kudos to Jimmy, because no other owner in the league at the moment is doing this. And it wouldn't surprise me if there's a few that catch on. So we're looking at maybe the Dolphins, the Jags, the Bills, and the Broncos are sort of sniffing around. And I think the Jets might get into that discussion as well if they add a certain quarterback that currently plays for the Packers. But there's not many teams that can go and do this, because I knew what the Browns were doing. But it was the time when I sat back and went, hey, what are the other teams around the NFL doing? And I thought, hey, the Saints are going to be in there. The Eagles are going to be in there. They're the sort of teams you expect to be in that mix. But they're not. It's pretty much the Browns are operating their own way to everyone else. And they should be able to, if they want, sustain this as, hey, we're going to be a top 5 spender every single year. And they could do that forever. And there might be a year where a team comes along, spends 50 million more than them in a single year because they can, but they'll end up balancing out unless you're going to commit to this. And it's not one way you can turn it on and turn it off without having to make cuts to your roster. If Jimmy says every year, I'm going to give you 115% of the salary cap to spend on your 53 players, boom, they can go out and do that, and they can build in long-term deals, push that money off. So I think that's what their plan is. We'll continue to see it. And I wrote sort of before free agency started, I said, I think we're going to get to 260 million across the 53-man roster. And we're pretty much just there. Where are we without Goodwin? Number is 256.5 mil. Wow. So we're a few million under. But hey, we've got a few more moves yet to come. No doubt Al Woods will be added. They might add some other guys. There'll be a little bit increase for draft picks just because they get a bigger year one cash hit with the way that they're signing bonuses in there. But no, I think it's a really, really good model because people want that overly aggressive. Let's go all in. I'm like, hey, let's be a top 5 spender every single year because that is aggressive. But then let's make it sustainable because there's no reason for the entire Deshaun Watson career with the Browns. If he's giving you top 8 quarterback play, we should be able to win a Super Bowl. And that's the bar. We're not going to win one every year. I know you'd love that, Nick, but we should be able to go into the playoffs and go, hey, we should win games. We might not beat Patrick Mahomes, and if it's, hey, we come up against him 3 years on the trot and we lose in the AFC Championship game, fine. I will accept that as it happens.
Yeah.
But let's set the bar at, we will go as far until we end up meeting Patrick Mahomes.
That really makes me feel good about Jimmy Haslam, honestly, because I did not know. I feel far smarter and like I understand what's going on. Because, I mean, obviously Haslam is already notable for fully guaranteeing Watson's contract. But to even really go above and beyond that and just be throwing as much money as possible at the Browns, I mean, obviously it doesn't always equal results, but I believe in what I said earlier, that 2023 is the first year since Sashi started all of this that we finally see this build bear fruit.
I hope so. Let me catch up on some of these comments real quick, and we'll move over towards kind of some draft stuff as we've gotten through a lot of the cap stuff we wanted.
We got Mitch Metz in here.
Mitch is in here. Casey thinks that Wright could take a giant step. Could be a bonus, not the plan. Listen, like I got an Alex Wright jersey hanging in the closet downstairs, so you ain't gonna get any arguments from this crew on that. Wright could make more of an impact if he could get his arms in the passing lane. He's got like 74-inch arms. He's got these just absolutely ridiculous. I think it was 74-inch wingspan or something like that. Yeah. And, things about disrupting passing lanes and things like that, that's something that Jim Schwartz does emphasize. Yeah, I mean, you see that in his career and talking to some of the players that have played for him. 100 episodes in. So the show has made leaps and bounds, and we appreciate listening to y'all. We appreciate you too, Mitch. We very much appreciate you. The Square Table of Degenerates coming on. What's going on, guys? We appreciate you guys over there. I just realized what your initials spelled there. There we go. That's what we're doing there. Was Pharaoh Brown a tight end in 2020 for Deshaun Watson? Could have been. I don't remember. He asked about the restructuring the sign to a signing bonus for one of those years. I assume it's the same as what they did this year. They could still do that. It just kicks it down the road.
Yeah, so they could do it again. And I think after the third year, that's put up and shut up point where you've got to decide whether you want to extend him or not, because the last thing you want to do. So if we do it again and convert the majority of that 46 million into a signing bonus, then what are we looking at? That's another 10 mil roughly. That's going to make the cap hits in that 2025 and 2026, about 75 mil. So that's fine if the point is then get the extension done after that. But you giving a lot of leverage to Watson, because if him and his agent goes, well, we want to keep pushing this number higher on the next deal, you lose a lot of the control in the negotiation. So it's a balancing act there. So you don't want to convert everything, because then, you get into that final year and you're fine if the player goes and retires and works with you, because, as I said, you can split that over the 2 years. If not, suddenly that is brutal and you've got no route out of it. So, it's a balancing game, but they'll continue pushing money. And if they then do the extension after year 3, we can push all that money again, and they'll push the next 2, and they can look at what they do. When he signed, I did some chart that said, what if they do basically 10 years of him and then push it all the way out? And that's got it all in there. But yeah, you can just kick it. You keep kicking the can realistically. And when you're doing restructures and pushing money, you start with the players that are going to be here the longest. It's why after Watson, if they did another one, Myles Garrett made the most sense, not a Amari Cooper or Nick Chubb that's only got 2 years under contract. You go to the guys where you're like, hey, you've got 4 or 5 years left. Let's push that money, because you can use void years, but you want to push it over as many real years as possible.
All right, let's shift to some draft stuff. My favorite subject. I'm going to ask you this question. No, I was going to ask you what's the best name in the draft again, and then I was going to give you another example of my favorite guy, and then I decided I wasn't going to do that. I think it's Puka Nacua, but that's just my opinion. There was a defensive back that I think actually went back to school from North Carolina. His name's Storm Duck. So that was probably my favorite. I had put him in some early mocks, but I'm pretty sure he went back to school because I haven't seen him on my board when I've been doing some of that stuff. But I think the biggest hot button position that is somewhat talked about, but kind of pushed a little bit more, is edge. I think edge is probably, for me right here, right now, edge, wide receiver. I think they're the most important positions because I think there are veteran fixes for what they need at defensive tackle. And if they draft a defensive tackle, I don't want that guy to have a big role. So in terms of the positions I really like to talk about right now is edge and wide receiver, because I think those guys need to be role players. I think you're going to get one of each of that position. Casey Kitterman loves Puka Nacua, so he's pretty happy that I brought it up there in the comment section. He's my buddy Casey Kitterman. He loves Puka Nacua. I do too. I just finally started watching his tape, and he's really, really stinking good. He reminds me of Mike Woods, actually, interestingly enough. But I think edge is where it's got to start. So, Jack, for you, man, looking at the draft day 2 specifically, are there a couple of edges that kind of stand out for you against the rest that kind of line up? You're the king of the guardrails, man. Like, you've got everything beautifully charted for idiots like me to understand. So I'll give it to you, the guy that checks all those boxes for Andrew Berry and even yourself from the edge position.
Yeah, so the guy that ticks the most boxes. So with D-line, it's the only position where I go a little bit further. So we've got age and we've got athletic score, but I actually dig into pass rush numbers because they've always drafted guys with really good pass rush metrics. All of their D-line prospects, from Jordan Elliott through to Alex Wright, they all graded really, really well for PFF. The one guy who has ticks across the board is Nick Herbig. But Nick Herbig is 240 pounds. So for that reason, I've got another article coming out in a couple of days, which is 22 players that are either size or weight extremes and bigger than anyone they've ever added. And we're not just talking draft picks. We're talking every single edge they've added to the practice squad, any connection to guys they've signed, traded for, extended. He is nowhere near what they've done before. So I don't think he's realistically going to be on their radar. I would say the most interesting name for me, and this would be a case of him falling slightly because he's expected to go late second round, is Derek Hall. If he is still there when they pick at 74, I could see that as an instant one to run the card up, even potentially go up a few spots. And a trade up, if they do trade up, Andrew Berry's got a format for how he does that. It's 2 for 2. So it'd be pick sort of 74 and 98. And then they would go up to somewhere between sort of 65 and 55, but then they would go back to 120. So you would move up sort of 20 spots, 15, 20 spots with the first pick, and then the second pick would go down about 25 picks. And that's how they balance it out, because you don't want to lose the amount of picks you've got. And every time Andrew Berry's gone up, he's made sure he's balanced that out, vice versa. Other names that sort of really stand out to me, Isaiah McGeary, I guess is pretty much the other one that catches my eye. A perfect fit in terms of age and athleticism, and more than good enough in the pass rush metric. So I'd say those are the two, if you're asking for me, some guys on day 2 of the draft that stand out.
Jack, everybody's talked about the likelihood of Andrew Berry trading down, but I hear you mentioning trade up. Do you see it as a likely scenario this year?
No.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to be one. And if they do trade up, I don't think it's someone that we're sat there going, oh, he's going to be in this range. So I wouldn't look at the boards and goes, hey, this bloke is expected to be in sort of the 55 to 60 range. They're going to trade up for him. If they trade up, I think it's someone where you're looking at boards as the 25 to 40 range almost, and they're still there. And then it's like, hey, we're going to trade up for that guy, because you don't want to trade up just to get that little bit of value. You want to trade up for a guy that you were like, if we had a high second round, we would have gone and got this guy at, is it 42? Is that our pick?
Yeah.
A guy that almost we would have drafted happily at 42. That's a guy we're going to trade up for, not a guy that, hey, he deserves to go at pick 55. We need to trade up for that. I think they want even more value. And I don't think they're going to be shy about doing it, but they're not going to give up and waste picks to do it. And people said, oh, I'll give up later picks to do it. That's not the way Andrew Berry's going to operate. Those 2 picks are going to go. He'll go up and he'll go down, and then he'll balance it out. Because in the grand scheme of it, moving back 20 spots is not the end of the world.
I mean, they just did it for Elijah Moore. I mean, in the talking about the way you're with up and back at the same time, that's what they did with Elijah Moore. They got Elijah Moore essentially at 32 or at 42 by trading back to 74. And so they literally gave an example of what you're talking about. I'm going to grab these. I'm going to grab these comments just a second, because I saw some good questions and some comments over there real quick. But to your point, I just did my first trade up mock. I wrote up for Browns Wire, and I did it here on the YouTube channel as well, where I targeted another impact linebacker falling. And that was Trenton Simpson from Clemson, who I like a ton, falling to 55 in the simulator. And it's like, that's exactly what they did with JOK. JOK fell to 52. People thought he shouldn't even be on the board at 26 when they picked the first time. And they even admitted, had Greg Newsome not been on the board at 26, they potentially would have gone JOK's route. At least they would have heavily considered it. And I find Trenton Simpson to be kind of a JOK at Mike linebacker. I wish he was just a little bit bigger, and I'd feel a little bit better about that. But like, I do think that in that situation, yeah, it's like, okay, I think Trenton Simpson is a borderline first-round talent. If he's in 55 and 60, that's exactly what you're talking about. And it's like, you go up for 74 and 98, and you get back like 120, like you said, like 120, 125, something like that. It's like, and you get an impact player. I gave up a bunch of picks when I did it. So, yeah, I see that comment. I see what you said, Nick. I'll get that in just a second. Sorry to put it off there, but yeah, like I see it something like that. It's got to be tremendous value, because that's all Andrew Berry cares about, which is fine. It's making sure he gets his money's worth. Another cap question: how much is the cap projected to grow the next couple of years? Yeah, so using the numbers from the guys over the cap, by far the best place to go and get everything it's looking at. So this year's is 225 mil, and I believe is expected to be the final year of paying off like the debts through to COVID and everything else. Okay. So next 3 years is 256 mil, 282 mil, and 308 mil. But it's one that, as the cap grows, the contracts are growing at very similar rates. So you get a bit of a saving when you've got a player like Myles Garrett and Njoku, Ward already under contract, because even though the prices are growing, you've signed them up for like 5 years and you balance that out. But in terms of new deals coming along, you're going to see deals continue to jump. So when we're sat there talking about a next Deshaun Watson deal, it's going to be 46 million. It's going to seem like a bargain from back in the day. It's going to get to the stage where quarterbacks are earning 60 million very soon. When the cap rises, players are well aware the cap's going up, and the agents, and make sure the deals rise accordingly.
I don't remember who it was, but I remember the first quarterback deal that broke 30 million, and they made a big deal about that. And here we are talking about 46 and 60.
And it's about to be shattered. Like the 46 is about to be shattered very, very soon. Some big names. Real quick, I know Jack only has a little bit more time, so we're gonna step away just real quick for a quick break, a couple of minutes before we wrap some things up with Jack, and then we got a lot of episode 100 shenanigans to get to with my stuff, with the announcement of what I'll be doing for charity, which includes me getting shot by things. So that's a thing that's going to happen. So real quick, we're going to take our only break of the episode and hear from our friends. Well, hear from me and Betstamp.
What's up, guys? Today's podcast is brought to you by our friends over at the Betstamp app, which is helping thousands of people win at sports betting, and it's absolutely free. The same way travelers use things like Google Flights, Expedia, and other websites to find the best prices, bettors can now use the Betstamp app to do the same for sports betting. When you place a bet, the odds given by a sportsbook will determine how much you could possibly win. Even when betting on the same outcome, different sportsbooks will offer varying payouts, and those differences can be pretty big. Thankfully, Betstamp allows you to easily line shop for the most profitable odds across all the major sports books. You can click on any matchup and instantly see all the different odds from game lines, player props, and even futures bets. Line shopping is the simplest way to find an edge in sports betting and maximize your chances of winning long term. On average, Betstamp users win an extra $1,000 a year just by line shopping. For example, March Madness is tipping off. You want to make sure you're going to have all the tools needed to cash in on your predictions. The tournament is filled with exciting upsides, and Betstamp will connect you with the best possible odds for every pick you make. You can find the Betstamp app in the Apple iOS Store, Google Play Store, or through your browser at www.betstamp.app. To access all these benefits, sign up using our promo code Network216, all one word, no space between network and 216, and start your journey to successfully sports betting today. If you forget to use the code upon sign up, you can always enter our code in your Betstamp account settings afterwards. So go check it out and let's make some money.
And remember, the word is upset, not upsite. I don't know what the hell that was, but that's just what I do. All right. There's a comment about Keanu Benton. Benton, I think, is just out of their striking range. But I said that about Travis Jones last year, and there's a lot of Travis Jones's game in Keanu Benton. If Keanu Benton's there at 74, man, like that's me. I'm Keanu Benton's number 2 fan. Randy Gurzy is the number 1 fan over at Dog Pound Daily. But like, if he's there, I definitely would be all over that.
I'd say the issue you've got with drafting DTs, especially if you're only keeping 4, is based on it was 1.86 defensive tackles per snap last year, because hey, you have some where you've got edge defenders in there, weird packages, all sorts, and that's about a normal number. So you expect Tomlinson to have his normal 600 to 650 snaps. That's 55% of snaps done, booked. You've then got about 3 players that are each going to play about 450 snaps, 400 to 450, and that's all the Woods will play if you sign him. So let's say we sign Woods. You've then got 900 snaps left for 2 guys. The issue is, if you draft a rookie, he needs to play 400 snaps. This isn't like a rookie where you can take a wide receiver, you can take something else, and you can effectively bench him for a year and go, hey, when you're ready to come in, we'll develop you. You're going to need to hit their stride and go really early. And that, for me, is the danger of taking a DT. If you've got sort of a first-round pick, you can go and get someone that's worthy and ready to start. But once you go outside the first round, you almost want a redshirt year, but you don't have a roster spot to redshirt them for a year. And that's, for me, why I'd almost go, forget drafting DTs. I would just continue spending money in free agency. And whether you're getting the Hill, the Hurst, the Al Woods guys to fill out that bottom of that room, I would just pay veterans, bring in mercenaries, get them on cheap deals, and go, hey, just come join Jim Swartz and hit some people for a few years. Legally. We're not talking about Perion Winfrey. We're talking about pass rushing and quarterbacks. Just to clear that up.
Just their job. We just want to advocate that and be very clear about that.
Yeah.
It is not what we're saying.
You know what? I like that plan, Jack, honestly, because I don't think to this point we've seen the Browns draft impact defensive tackles. And so, you know what? And I'd like to see them fix that, right? But in the position the Browns are in, when you're in a place where your goal is Super Bowl. I keep saying that. But I think you need guys with proven production if that's something you could afford. And it seems like with Jack, I've seen your list of defensive tackles still available that you like. It certainly seems like there's still some guys out there that could answer those questions.
Yeah, there's a whole list of them. I'm gonna ask you one more question before we let you go, because I know you got another engagement to jump over to. A lot of linebackers tricky in this draft class, because I just think there's your guys at the very top, and then there's guys like Dorian Williams and Ivan Pace, and then it just falls off a cliff. Like, are those the two names you got most on your radar, in Dorian Williams and Ivan Pace, or is there somebody else that kind of interests you in the draft at the position?
Dorian Williams for me is clearly my preferred option. A bit more of a Will, and I'm fine with that. I think where our room's set, Will's probably the most pressing need, just because there's one really on the roster. I don't think Fields is someone that will probably make the team, and if I'm sat there going, hey, I've got three guys that can play, Mike. I've got plan A's Walker, plan B is Taki goes in there, and then if you really need him, Kunasic will do the job. Will, I've got JOK, and then I've got a hole there. Sam, I've got Taki's plan A because he can play alongside Walker. If not, Adams can do that as well as special teams. And realistically, I don't think JOK is a player that's going to be here long term. So I'll draft a Dorian Williams now, and that's my next transition in 2 years' time, already booked and prepared. So that'd be the route I'd go. But Popo is someone else that's interesting. Pace, I think, is slightly light based on what they've done before at linebacker, because he's popped up as that kind of, he's on the extremes of that list. But I'd just bring a guy in, and I think Dorian Williams is someone that it makes a lot of sense. 4th round pick. Bring a body back.
I was like messing around with some mocks the other day, and I was talking with Corey Kennan, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not upset if they took Dorian Williams at 74. Like, I think you could take him at 74 if you wanted to be careful, and you were of the same belief that as we are, that class just falls off a cliff after him. I mean, there are guys. You're right. Like, there's guys but like, if you're like, hey, this is my guy. I talked to Quincy Carrier about this too. It's like, if this is your guy, just go get him. Just go get your guy where you can get him, and all of that. Real quick, I know you got to go, so plug everything you got going on and let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, so right at the OBR, I'm basically dropping an article a day at the moment. There's just so much. But follow me on Twitter. It's all pumped out there. You ever want to know what's going on Cap, just jump to the pin tweet. It'll have some information on there. But no, enjoy a podcast with Paul Brown. So Paul Brown podcast. Who knows when they go out? They go out when they go out. There's weeks where you get 3, and there's weeks where you don't get any. So hey, we roll with it as it goes. But yeah, I think that's mostly it. Congrats, guys, to Show 100. Great fun, hitting the big milestones.
I just want to say I feel smarter for having listened to you today, and I really appreciate that. And I can't wait to see what you've got going, Jack, because it sounds like you're a busy guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, free agency is the best time of the year. Sit there just like about 100 hours of just looking at guys. What's Andrew Berry do? Does this guy match it? Does that guy match it? And then usually I sit there getting really angry because the players join the Texans or they join the Bills. It's basically been the flow for 2 years. But he actually signed my guys this year. So something like 12 of the 15. I was pretty chuffed with that.
We know you're really Andrew Berry in a mask. Jack, we appreciate you, man. We'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Cheers.
All right. Thanks, Jack, for jumping on there real quick. MC want to know why we're so early. We were just so early so that we could get Jack on. We ran at 5:30 just because of the time difference with him over in England, that we needed to make the episode earlier just so we could get that, and we got to a ton of stuff. I do like Popo. Like, I really do. He is lightning fast. He does fly all over it. The biggest thing about Popo out of out of Auburn was the age. I just felt like his age was really high for what Andrew Berry does. So that was kind of why I had taken him off some of my stuff. Was there some things that he doesn't line up with some of the guardrails? That was the biggest thing.
I wanted to ask him before he left, what's one player he would say the Browns will end up drafting? And I messed up and I didn't ask him. But I will say, I did not realize that. Did you realize that Jimmy Haslam spends like he does?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just because, mostly because of Jack. I've seen a lot of those articles that Jack has done. Okay. And I mean, when you look at the contracts, they lead the league in like 10 plus million annually contracts that are paying over 10 million. That they lead the league in that. So I figured they were somewhere around there. That's the thing. It's never been about spending money for Jimmy Haslam and the issues that the Browns have had, because you can't say he's cheap. He's at one point was paying like 7 coaches. So like, can't really say that he's cheap.
I think it's fair to say after all that we just heard that more rides on Deshaun Watson than any Browns quarterback since they've come back. Because if he is good, they're going to be able to extend this for many, many years in the future. If he's not good, then you've got a massive problem on your hands. So I'm betting on it.
So we got a giveaway. It's episode 100. So if you want to enter into this giveaway, it's simple, man. Be subscribed to the channel. Give us a like. Give us that thumbs up right there. And leave in the comment. Leave in the comments. We just making this up, aren't we?
I like. What about your any memory of the Barking Browns show you have? Anyone that sticks out to you? I just want to know something that because a lot of you guys have been with us for basically the full 100 or the whole thing, right? So what's something that stuck out to you? Because as Jacob and I move forward here, and as we get, now we're pressing on for 200, right? We're both looking always to know what do we do well? What don't we do well? How can we grow and continue to bring you guys better shows? So I'd love to know one thing that you remember about the Barking Brown show.
Yeah, and it can even be me being an idiot or being wrong.
Sure, anything.
Yeah, not in the live chat. So if you guys are in the live chat, go to the comment section after this, just because we want this to be for everybody, not just the people that were able to join us during the live. But yeah, just subscribe to the channel, give us a thumbs up, helps us in that YouTube algorithm. Comment, just something you like about the show, something you remember about the show. We'll give away an homage shirt of your choice in about a week. We'll announce it on next week's episode. We'll do that there. Coming in June, for people that are curious, last year I did a couple of charity fundraisers, including doing the One Chip Challenge on a Saturday night that included me yelling at my wife to bring more milk because she thought I was joking.
Gonna have to bring the whole carton.
She would bring more milk. She'd be like, she came up the one time just to get my glass, and I'm like, well, I didn't know. I needed the milk, not you to take this. Like, you'd use a different glass when you dirty up more glasses. Like, that's it. And so last year I did that. Coming in June, we're going to be holding a charity fundraiser, try to raise some money. We're still unsettled on the amount, but our goal is going to be, the charity. But our goal is $1,000. If we can raise $1,000 for a children's charity. And if you got a charity that you think is awesome, put that in the comments as well. And for every $50 that we make up to $1,000, I will be shot with a paintball gun.
Oof.
From like 20 feet away.
Oof.
Yeah.
You are.
So up to 20 times I'll be shot with a paintball gun if we raise the $1,000.
That is certainly going to be something to see. Jacob, you are a stronger man than I.
It is what it is. It gets us clicks, right, baby? Woo, 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 woo. I like to have some fun and do some fun content, especially during the slow season. So the month of June, we'll raise that stuff, and then we'll do a special live episode where I get shot with paintball guns and try to answer Brown's questions and do all that fun stuff. And I'm not going to wear any gear. I'm going to wear some protective gear on my face and groin, but that's about it. And you can shoot me on the butt too. Whatever. I don't care. Like we'll make it some fun. We'll have a good time. We appreciate every one of you guys, man. Like 100 episodes, like holy shit. I didn't monetize this episode till halfway through, so that was a thing that I did. Guys, if you want to help out the channel, by the way, you can subscribe to the channel, like it, share it with your friends. We do have a Patreon. We're working on trying to get that stuff back up and running. Mm-hmm. That's patreon.com/network_216. We're trying to create more content for people that want to subscribe and help us out in that sort of way. And like, we'll do some more live shows where I do embarrassing things if we raise money. So,
you know what? I'm sure we're going to make it a bigger thing, but we just need the Browns to win their first game of the season, and you got me doing the Hot Ones challenge. I might just do it for the entertainment of the. No, I really want the Browns to win. The Browns got to win. But
I just did it, so.
Well, okay, maybe we'll go that way with it. But we're definitely going to have some surprises in store for you, and I just want to say to everybody that we're so excited about the corner, because we really feel collectively like we've been able to turn a corner, and we could not do it without all of you. And so I can't wait to see where we are by 200. It's amazing to think, for those of you that like Jacob said, remember the apartment Wi-Fi, or you remember the one person on Twitter in the video call and the other person was there. Those were certainly. It's been an evolution, and I can't wait to see the rest we go. Josh, I see we've got you in here. We've had so many people in here saying hello. Thank you for being here. We appreciate all of you. So what we're going to do is I think we're going to give away the homage gear for next week's episode. So we'll give people basically a week to enter. We'll announce on Twitter, because thankfully people have been listening to this, while it's live, when it's not, that whole thing. So we're going to give everybody a fair chance to enter, and then we can't wait to do it. We're going to do lots more giveaways moving forward. We've got something really spicy in the works that may give you even more opportunities to benefit from following along with us. So we can't wait to share all that with you. Just a little bit more time. This has been episode 100 of the Barking Brown Show. God, that feels good. No more players. We got 100. Oh, quick question. 0 or 8 for Elijah Moore?
Yeah, I quote tweeted it. He's asked 8 or 0. I quote tweeted it. 0 all day, baby.
I'm going to make this commitment here now. If Elijah Moore chooses 0, I will get an Elijah Moore jersey.
I'm getting one either way.
There it is. Episode 100 of the Barking Brown Show. I'm Nick. He's Jacob. It's an honor. Go Browns.
Dolphins always sleep with one eye open.